In this segment, I'd like to talk about the critiquing process, the nuts and bolts of the critiquing process. Remember, we're talking about critiquing composition here. First, a couple of characteristics of valuable critiques. One, they need to be thorough. Two, they need to be consistent and should be based upon a repeatable process. And the reason why you want them consistent and based upon a repeatable process so that you're always evaluating using the same criteria with the same thoroughness. So if you're working on a project and improving it, you're going to be evaluating it based upon the same criteria. Now, what are we going to use for our critique? Well, remember our discussion of what makes a successful composition? Simplicity, asymmetry, eye lines, and point of view. And guess what? We're going to use exactly the same 4 characteristics or criteria for going through our critique process. And just to review, remember in simplicity, we looked at the number of image elements, the internal complexity, whether something was too complex or too simple, separation of image elements, and then primary visual elements. Underneath asymmetry, when we were considering that, vertical asymmetry, horizontal asymmetry, compare the 4 quadrants, and apply one of the rules of thirds if you like to use that as part of your process. And then looking for eye lines, remember the types of eye lines, physical eye lines, perspective with foreground, middle ground, background, looking for tonal and color transitions, any elements that moves the eye across the image. Remember that asymmetry and eye lines work together, so I very often in a critique will kind of combine those two in my evaluation. And then finally, point of view, changing scale, changing position, having unusual views or unexpected views. When I evaluate someone's image or my own, I try to look at that and say, well, what was my point of view? Could I have had a different one that might have been more effective? And then I really encourage you, and I try to force myself to always evaluate in the same order, beginning with simplicity and then looking at asymmetry and eye lines together, and then looking at point of view. If you don't like this particular order, if you like to do point of view before you do asymmetry, that's fine. But I really encourage you to begin all of your critiques, either internally or externally, with an overview of that simplicity of the image, how complex it is, because that's really the foundation for all good composition. And as you progress through your evaluation process, your critique process, begin with the strengths and then identify the weaknesses.